The old coastal highway is my refuge. It's a strip of cracked asphalt that snakes along the cliffs about an hour from my house, a place where the cell signal dies and the world shrinks to the sound of waves and wind. I'm a photographer, and this place, with its gnarled cypress trees and dramatic drops, is my muse. I know every turn, every unofficial trail, every spot where the light hits just right at golden hour. I've been out here in blistering sun and driving rain, but I had never seen a fog like the one that rolled in that Tuesday. It started as a low bank on the horizon, a smudge of gray against the blue, but within 20 minutes, it had swallowed everything. The air grew heavy and damp, tasting of salt and cold rock. Visibility dropped to maybe 30 feet. The sun vanished, and the vibrant coastline was rendered in shades of muted gray. It was beautiful in an eerie, cinematic way. I pulled my car into my usual spot, a small gravel turnout overlooking a cove, thinking I could capture some uniquely atmospheric shots. The fog was so thick it muffled the world, creating a profound silence that was broken only by the distant, mournful clang of a buoy bell. I was completely alone out here, which was exactly how I liked it. The isolation was part of the appeal. It felt like stepping into a private, untouched world. I grabbed my camera bag, locked my car, and started down the familiar path toward the cliffs, the gravel crunching under my boots. The silence felt different this time, not peaceful, but watchful. I shook off the feeling, blaming it on the sudden gloom. Fog plays tricks on the mind, warping distance and sound. I told myself it was just the weather, just the unusual quiet getting to me. I had been here 100 times. I knew this place. I was safe. I walked for about 15 minutes, the path becoming a faint suggestion in the swirling mist. The buoy bell was the only constant, a lonely metronome in the gray void. That's when I first saw the truck. It was parked on the shoulder of the highway, about 100 yards past my own turnout, where no one ever parks. It was an old, beat-up pickup, the color some indeterminate shade of rust and primer. It hadn't been there when I arrived. For it to be there now, it must have pulled over in the last few minutes, its engine sound completely absorbed by the fog. It struck me as odd. This wasn't a place people just stopped. You came here with purpose. Still, I reasoned, maybe it was just another photographer, someone with the same idea as me. I tried to dismiss it and focus on my work, setting up my tripod near the cliff edge, the ground soft and damp beneath my feet. But I couldn't shake a low-grade hum of anxiety. The presence of that truck had changed the equation. The perfect, peaceful isolation I treasured was gone, replaced by an unknown variable. My private world now had an intruder. The feeling of being watched started to creep in, a prickle on the back of my neck that had nothing to do with the cold, damp air. I kept glancing back toward the road, but the truck was just a vague, dark shape in the fog, unmoving, silent. It felt like a predator waiting patiently in the mist. I tried to force my attention back to the camera, framing a shot of a cypress branch that clawed at the gray air. But my senses were stretched thin, every nerve on high alert. The clanging buoy bell sounded less like a warning and more like a countdown. I packed up my gear. The magical atmosphere was gone, replaced by a growing dread. It was time to leave. As I walked back toward the highway, my boots unnervingly loud on the gravel path, I kept my eyes fixed on where the truck should be. The fog was playing tricks again, making the shape seem to shift and blur. As I got closer, I saw a figure. A man was standing beside the truck, leaning against the driver's side door, almost perfectly still. He was just a silhouette, a tall, broad shape against the slightly lighter gray of the fog. He wasn't doing anything, just standing there, facing my direction. All the rational explanations I had been feeding myself evaporated. This wasn't another photographer. His posture was all wrong. It wasn't curious or relaxed. It was predatory. He was watching me. I felt a surge of cold adrenaline. My car was another 50 yards past him. To get there, I would have to walk right by him. The highway was narrow, with the cliff on one side and a steep, rocky embankment on the other. There was no room to give him a wide berth. My heart hammered against my ribs. I thought about turning back, hiding in the labyrinth of trails until he left, but the fog made that idea terrifying.
It would be so easy to get lost, to trip and fall. And what if he came looking for me? The thought of being hunted in this disorienting grayness was paralyzing. No, my car was the only safe place. I had to get to my car. I took a deep breath, trying to project an air of confidence I did not feel. I clutched my camera bag strap like a lifeline and started walking, my pace steady. Don't run, I told myself. Don't show fear. Just walk. As I approached, the details of the man and his truck began to resolve out of the mist. He was wearing a dark, heavy coat and a baseball cap pulled down low. His face was in shadow, but I could feel his eyes on me. The truck was even more decrepit up close, with a spiderweb crack in the windshield and a mismatched fender. It looked like it belonged in a junkyard, not on a scenic highway.
I fixed my gaze on my car in the distance, a small, dark oasis in the oppressive gray. 10 more yards. My path would take me within arm's reach of him. I could hear my own breathing, loud and ragged in the stillness. Just as I was about to pass him, he pushed off the truck and took a single, deliberate step into the middle of the narrow road, directly into my path. He didn't look at me, but the move was unmistakable. It was a barricade, a challenge. The silent, empty highway suddenly felt like a trap, and the clanging buoy bell now sounded like an alarm I should have heeded much, much sooner. My blood ran cold. The move was so casual, so deliberate. It was more terrifying than any sudden lunge would have been. He wasn't just in the way, he was claiming the space, asserting control. He still hadn't looked at me directly, instead keeping his head angled slightly downwards, his face obscured by the shadow of his cap. He just stood there, a solid, immovable obstacle between me and safety. My mind raced through a dozen frantic scenarios. Should I scream? There was no one to hear. The fog would swallow the sound. Should I run back down the path? I'd be plunging back into the unknown, and he was already closer to me than I was to the trailhead. My car keys were a heavy, solid weight in my pocket. So close. I stopped walking. The space between us was electric with unspoken threat. I could feel him waiting for my next move, like a spider sensing a tremor in its web. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. The buoy bell clanged again, a lonely, mournful sound from a world away. I had to break the stalemate. I cleared my throat, the sound ridiculously small in the vast quiet. "Excuse me," I said, my voice tight but surprisingly steady. I gestured vaguely with my head towards my car. "I just need to get by." He didn't move for a long moment. Then slowly he lifted his head. He was older than I expected, his face weathered and creased, with pale, flat eyes that seemed to look right through me. He gave me a slow, unnerving smile that didn't reach his eyes. It was the kind of smile that wasn't meant to be friendly. It was a smile of ownership.
"Nice camera," he said, his voice a low, gravelly rasp. The words hung in the air, a clear violation of the unspoken rules of stranger interaction. He wasn't making small talk. He was sizing me up, evaluating my worth. He was letting me know he had been watching me for a while. "Thanks," I mumbled, taking an involuntary step back. His eyes flickered from my camera bag to my face, then to the empty road behind me. The smile widened. He knew. He knew we were alone. He knew how vulnerable I was. Then he did something that sent a fresh wave of terror through me. He took another step, not towards me, but to his right, moving closer to the rocky embankment. At the same time, I heard a sound from the truck. The passenger door creaked open. I hadn't even registered that there might be someone else. The fog had hidden them. A second figure began to emerge from the passenger side, just as large as the first. They were flanking me. It was a coordinated maneuver, designed to cut off any escape route.
The narrow highway was no longer a path, it was a bottleneck, and I was walking right into it. My flight or fight instinct, which had been simmering on a low boil, erupted. There was no more room for doubt, no more pretending this was a misunderstanding. This was happening. I wasn't going to be a victim. I wasn't going to let them close the trap. In that split second, my brain latched onto the only advantage I had. I knew this terrain. I knew it intimately. While they saw a road with a cliff on one side and a rocky wall on the other, I saw the hidden path. About 20 feet back from where I stood, there was a game trail, a tiny, almost invisible break in the embankment that I had used dozens of times to get to a lower vantage point. It was steep, treacherous, and slick with damp moss and loose scree. To them, it would look like a solid wall of rock. To me, it was the only way out. Without another thought, I spun around and sprinted, not towards my car, but back the way I came. The man in the road grunted in surprise, his smile vanishing. "Hey!" he shouted, the sound sharp and angry. I heard the passenger door slam shut and the heavy thud of boots on asphalt as they started after me. Adrenaline was afire in my veins. I didn't dare look back. I just ran, my camera bag bouncing wildly against my hip. I counted my strides, my eyes scanning the base of the embankment. 5, 6, 7, there. The tiny opening was exactly where I remembered it. I veered off the road without slowing down, plunging into the narrow gap. The ground immediately dropped away. I half ran, half slid down the steep decline, my hands scraping against sharp rocks and thorny bushes. I could hear them on the road above me, their footsteps stopping as they realized I had vanished. "Where'd she go?" the first man's voice echoed, distorted by the fog. I didn't wait to hear more. I scrambled downwards, moving on pure instinct. The path was barely a foot wide, winding precariously along the cliff face. One wrong step would send me tumbling into the churning gray void below.
The buoy bell was louder here, closer, its clang a frantic, rhythmic beat that matched my racing heart. I could hear them crashing through the brush above me, trying to follow, but they were clumsy and loud. They didn't know the way. Their frustration was audible in their curses, which were quickly swallowed by the fog. I pushed myself harder, my lungs burning from the cold air. The trail eventually flattened out onto a small, hidden beach in the cove I had been trying to photograph earlier. It was a pocket of sand and stone, completely invisible from the road above. I didn't stop. I ran across the wet sand, the waves crashing just feet away, their spray misting my face. On the far side of the cove, another, slightly easier path led back up to the highway, about a quarter-mile past the turnout where our cars were parked. It was a long shot, but it was my only shot. As I clawed my way up the final ascent, I risked a glance back. For a moment, the fog thinned, and I saw them, two dark figures, standing on the cliff edge far behind me, looking down, searching. They looked like ghosts, swallowed by the gray. Then the mist closed in again, and they were gone. I didn't stop running until I burst back onto the asphalt of the highway, gasping for breath, my legs shaking uncontrollably. My car was now far behind me, back in their territory. But salvation was ahead. The fog was slightly thinner here, and in the distance, I could see the faint, blessed glow of another car's headlights approaching. It was the first vehicle I had seen since I arrived. I stumbled into the middle of the road, waving my arms frantically, praying they would see me, praying they would stop. They did stop. It was an elderly couple, their faces etched with concern as they rolled down their window.
I must have looked like a ghost, emerging from the fog, covered in mud and scratches, my hair wild. I babbled something incoherent about two men, a truck, being chased. I don't think they understood half of what I said, but they saw the sheer terror in my eyes. "Get in, dear, get in," the woman said, her voice trembling slightly as she pushed the back door open. I scrambled into their car, not caring where they were going, just knowing it was away from there. As we drove, I looked back, but the spot where the truck had been was already lost in the fog. My own car was still there, a lone dark shape. I felt a pang of loss for my camera, which was now probably gone forever from my abandoned car, but it was a small price to pay. The couple drove me to the nearest town, to the sheriff's office. I gave a statement, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the pen to sign my name. The deputy was professional, but skeptical. Two men and a truck in the fog on a deserted road. It was vague. There was no real crime committed, just a feeling, an instinct. He promised to send a patrol car out, but I knew what they would find. Nothing. The fog provides the perfect cover. By the time they got there, the truck, the men, would be gone. A friend had to come and get me, and the next day I had my car towed back to town. The driver's side window was smashed, and my camera bag was gone. My wallet and a few other things from the glove box were taken too. The official report called it a simple vehicle burglary, a crime of opportunity. But I knew it was more than that. The smashed window felt like a message. It was a violation, a final act of dominance to let me know they could have gotten to me. They had my ID, my address.
For months, every time I saw a beat-up truck, My heart would seize up. I stopped going to the coast, stopped going anywhere alone. The place that had once been my sanctuary was now tainted by the memory of those flat, predatory eyes and the chilling realization of how quickly a familiar landscape can become a hunting ground. The police never found them. They became just another story, another file in a cabinet. But the most unsettling part came a few weeks later. A local news report mentioned a hiker who had gone missing in one of the inland state parks about 50 miles from the coast. He was an experienced outdoorsman, but the search parties found his car abandoned at a trailhead, the window smashed. They never found him. The report didn't mention a rusty truck or two shadowy figures, but I didn't need it to. I knew. The fog that day on the coast hadn't just been weather, it was a curtain, and I had been given a terrifying glimpse of what was waiting behind it. I was just one of the lucky ones who managed to slip away before it closed for good.